A very warm welcome to you, Priyanka. We're very thrilled to have you with us.
Hi, David. Very nice to meet you. Thank you so much again.
And everyone, we have a very different kind of brand that we're going to discuss now. Up to now, when we talk about D2C, we're talking about brands that project themselves to get an audience to buy from them. Here is a brand which uses values and integrity and marketing acumen to be able to empower people who would like to give for social good, to give on their platform for various causes, or to raise money on the platform for various causes. It's a very different kind of business, but it is D2C. And of course, there are relationships that they have with various organizations as well, which add to their credibility in terms of what they do. So, Priyanka Prakash is with us. Let me quickly introduce her before we get into the session. I can tell you it's going to be a very different kind of session, but probably with a lot of insight because the kind of person we're talking to is the kind of person who would like to support society, you know, and that's what this brand enables. So, Priyanka has over 14 years of experience in product management, in strategy, in sales and marketing. She is an alumna of Carnegie Mellon University and began her career with companies like Ernst& Young, Deloitte, InMobi, and then she went on to found zoyo.ai, which was acquired by MagicTiger. And then she was the VP Marketing for Growth at Tailorman. And now she heads the giving, marketing, and partnerships at GiveIndia, India's largest and most trusted giving platform. Now, for a moment, let me just give you an idea of what GiveIndia has achieved from the time of its inception up to now. We all give, right? We all give as we are able. So, how much money do you think cumulatively a platform like GiveIndia could raise? You'll be astonished to know they've raised over 457 crores so far. And right now, the cause they're supporting is the immunization of rural India, for which they're raising 1 crore, of which they've already raised close to 75 lakhs. That is the enormity of what we're talking about. So, Priyanka, once again, a warm welcome. And, we have a number of questions we'd like to ask you so that we can get insights as to how you all operate. And so let me start with the first question. This is, in a sense, crowdfunding, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And over the years, much as the internet is being democratized and more people are getting onto the platform, you must have seen a shift in terms of the profile of people who are on the platform and willing to give. So, what are the big changes you've seen over the years and pre-COVID and post-COVID? Well, we can't say post-COVID yet, but during COVID.
Hopefully soon. So David, I think there are two considerations. One is what we have seen is in the past 1.5 years. I'll just cover the pre-COVID and current scenario. What we have seen is the empathy level and the giving energy across the world is extremely high. I think it's an all-time high.
Absolutely.
But what I think gives an impetus to that is compared to earlier times and now during COVID is the enormity of the connectedness, and is also the fact that that is supported by financial instruments that make giving so easy, right? And also digital literacy, which is at an all-time high. Yeah. So I think all of these aspects have really helped. During a time like COVID, I'm pretty sure many of our peer platforms and many of the non-profits who are fundraising for COVID causes will agree that this has been the largest probably fundraise that any one of us have seen when it comes to social causes, when it comes to a disaster in India. It's unprecedented. We have seen people, historically, you would see people who are, very settled in their, from a financial lens, HNIs, upper middle class, or some people who are very socially inclined donate. But I think with social media networks, the democratization, like you said, of information, NGOs and platforms like us have been able to share information and people react to it immediately because it's available everywhere as opposed to earlier, and they're able to also find easy ways to give. I think those are some things that have made a difference to how people can give. Um, and another piece I feel is, as storytelling and video and narratives have been, adopted by brands around the world
Right.
as one of the primary ways for them to raise, for them to acquire customers. In our world also, I feel that we have been able to successfully do that, especially over the past, I would say, 1 or 2 or 3 years. Many NGOs, many platforms, peer platforms like ours and us, we have leveraged the power of storytelling. We've leveraged the power of bringing the reality of the ground to the fore, so that people feel like, uh, people are moved by it. And when they are moved by it, there's enough digital literacy, there's enough financial instruments for them to give. So the friction is a lot more lesser. I think all of these aspects, come together to help the larger giving energy that is the highest at the moment.
Yeah. And what is so heartening is that digital has kind of exposed uh, the willing nature of a broad section of the population to
Yeah,
support society. It's almost like digital has restored our faith in humanity, if you know what I mean.
absolutely.
It's been a wonderful experience.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. So who's donating now? If it's not just HNIs who are metro based, uh, are people from tier one, two, three, all of them donating? Could you give us a flavor of what's
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah, so I think I'll just separate that out by pre-COVID and COVID. Pre-COVID, what we saw is that a lot of diaspora supporting, discovery for people who live internationally, it's very hard. But through targeted ads, we of course try to reach people who have an affinity to donate, who are not Indians, for causes in India. And also, we used to see a very large sort of density amongst the tier one cities pre COVID. In COVID, what we saw is a completely different, picture. I think what happened during COVID is we saw people come from broad spectrum of income areas. We had people who donated anywhere between 100 to 1,000 rupees, and we had people who donated in lakhs on fundraisers and not directly as institutional donors. So that is one from an income spectrum. The second piece is also there was a completely different type of donor during COVID. Earlier, it used to be people who are in their 25 to 35 or 40 range. That used to be our majority of the fundraisers. But we saw that during COVID, because of the amount of awareness that was happening across different types of groups or communities, I would say that also, stretched anywhere between 20 to 60, right? So just generally, I mean, obviously for the kind of scale, if you just see our fundraiser missions, COVID missions, we raised close to 80, 90 crores just on the missions, right? In a matter of 2, 3 weeks. And we had tens of thousands of donors come forward to do that. So something like that to happen, obviously there had to be a difference in the demographics of the people, and we saw that that stretched beyond the normal. That was one. Second piece is we also saw international empathy and international support just pouring in like nothing before. And I think the media narrative around how much struggle was happening in India sort of helped that. And people understanding that what are the real causes here, at this moment. And luckily, we were able to react very quickly to say that oxygen or healthcare infrastructure are most important. And as such, international donors, and these are not the diaspora, of course, was very active as well, but international donors, non-Indian donors as well from around the world, we saw them coming and donate as well, ranging from $10 to $10,000 to $20,000 as well. Primarily, it was US, UK, Australia, Singapore, these kind of countries, Canada. But yeah, I think we saw a very diverse set of donors that we wouldn't have seen prior to COVID.
What's interesting also is the name Give India spans both the expat population or the donors from abroad as well as in India so
Yeah.
beautifully, right? Because it
Yeah.
brings the whole thing together very well. One of the things with, oh, by the way, I'm very happy to tell you that I was one of the people who gave for the oxygens and the
Thank you.
concentrators.
Thank you
Because,
so much.
and as Social Beat, we are very thrilled to be supporting the efforts of Give India, and all of us did our little bit that we could.
I know, I know. It's been a very, very fantastic partnership with Social Beat, with the entire team supporting us with any requests we've had and putting up with our crazy work schedules during COVID. It's been a really great journey for us working with Social Beat.
So that's also part of our contribution. The other thing we've noticed is that there are platforms, which use communications which are quite distressing sometimes. But I think Give India is able to do it with a nicety and with integrity in such a way that those who want to give to a good cause feel like giving without feeling compelled to do so. So could you tell us about how you are reaching donors and what is really working, what is not, and what is your view on how to do it?
Yeah, sure. So David, just a little bit of background. I joined GiveIndia about a little over 2 years back. And one of the first things that I was, during my onboarding, one of the first things that I was asked to understand is the tonality of how GiveIndia communicates. We have a guideline for that. Even with Social Beat, we've had a couple of sessions where we, as a team, everybody understands how we talk. I think what we want to make sure is the dignity of the beneficiaries, dignity of the cause is upheld, and there's a lot of respect in the way we talk about these causes. We don't want to dramatize or sensationalize something.
Hmm.
However, we want to speak from a place of empathy, from a place of understanding the need. But having said this, it's a very difficult line to struggle. I'm sure the team at Social Beat we work with, some of them will be laughing. It's not very easy to communicate like this, but we try our best. That is one cornerstone of how we manage our communications. How do we reach our donors? I think, especially in COVID, what we have been very careful about is even if we take a little bit more time, but let's make sure we are launching the right initiatives. Last year when we launched our India COVID response fund, we were luckily early when we launched our missions, but we took time to have a sense of what are the needs on the ground, which was majorly at that point wage workers, right?
Hmm.
And we went in with a very strong sensibility of, let's not take out any sensational stories, let's not talk about show very gruesome images, but let's just talk about what is the need, what is the scale of the need, and be very transparent about how we are going to make an impact, how is the process going to be. So I think a lot of our communications, even this year when we launched our oxygen mission, that was the first mission which we launched, we tried to keep the focus on what is the impact going to be like. How are we providing transparency on how that will happen? When you're providing the money, how are we going to utilize it? Right? I think that is at the core of our communications. That's what we try to maintain. From a how do we acquire donors? Typically, non-COVID times, it's a combination of utilizing paid marketing channels, and we are very particular about our ROAS or cost of fundraising, but we do our best. However, during COVID, we have been fortunate enough to have a lot of word of mouth virality, both last year and this year as well. We used to have days when we raised 1 crore, 2 crores a day, just organically.
Hmm.
And all of this happened also because, they say that there's a lot of work that happens in the background that you don't see, right? I
Yeah.
remember working with my team, and I'm sure Sugandha and a couple of others in the Social Beat team will also remember this. When we launched the mission, I wanted to take 4 or 5 days. We wanted to take 4 or 5 days just to get the word out to the right people who have an authority, a voice, a following. So I remember a large team being put together who reached out to influencers of different kinds, letting them know what is happening. And it was at the peak of the time. And that just led to a lot of virality. And one thing that I feel people were willing to support us pro bono, influencers especially, is because we try to inspire a lot of trust through honest communication by giving information that they need. For example, if we say oxygen, I remember when we launched the mission, we actually had an Excel sheet linked on the fundraiser page, which listed here are the hospitals across the country, across the cities, which require how much oxygen, what kind of oxygen material, is it a cylinder, is it a concentrator, etc. So that kind of transparency was available. So I feel that trust really helped us get a lot of support from influencers around the world and in India, and that just went viral. um, in addition to that, I think what also helped us is we do fundraising in two ways. One is retail fundraising, which is individual givers like all of us. The other is institutional donors.
Mhm.
And we also, during this time, we had support from very large donors and partners in corporates like Vinod Khosla, for example,
Mhm.
Indra Nooyi, for example, all of them sharing their vote of confidence about us on social media platforms, which suddenly gave us another step jump in terms of reach. So yeah, so that's how COVID work happened. But non-COVID work, like you said in the introduction, we are hope to be a more marketing savvy, tech savvy company. So we do focus a lot on paid acquisition and smart ways of organic acquisition of donors as well.
What's really interesting is what you just outlined a little while ago about talking about a problem, talking about its scale, and talking about what's required and the outcome that you're trying to
Mm,
um, arrive at, and therefore the need for funds.
sure.
So that's a very transparent way of doing it and something that people can wrap their heads around because they immediately see what it is.
Yeah.
Now, pre COVID, can you tell us about whether you've used celebrities or influencers and what a difference it has made then? You told us about during COVID, the kind of people who
Yeah.
supported you, including Indra Nui.
Yeah.
But who were the kind of people that you may have used for various programs before? And how did it play out? Did it actually
Sure.
work well, or did people respond more to what you said?
No, I think our learning is pre-COVID. It's, for the lack of a better word, I would say that everybody is very busy in their schedules when it comes to influencers and celebrities. So even though we are a fundraising platform who supports causes, our cycle with the celebrities is the same as that of a brand, and it takes the same kind of effort to work with them. So we, to be honest, we hadn't seen a lot of huge success there. Yes, there were a few campaigns where some of the celebrities came and supported us, but nothing like what we saw during COVID. During COVID, we had, celebrities like Priyanka Chopra, we had, and several others, Lara Datta, we had Jay Shetty, and a host of other celebrities, and also people from different communities come in and support us. I think that kind of energy, giving energy, was not there pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, we would have to reach out to them, but during COVID, it was a very, voluntary and sort of involved acts from all of them. But pre-COVID, I think it was a slightly different ballgame.
Yeah, I think pre-COVID, you had to get them to relate enough to be able to overcome the inertia and get involved.
Yes, you're right.
Whereas,
Yeah,
whereas COVID was of such a scale,
yeah,
it affected it. You suddenly realized we're all in it together.
yes,
We're
yes,
a common
absolutely.
humanity. Doesn't matter
Yeah,
if you're a celebrity or a individual, you could
yeah,
die. I mean, it's as simple as that.
correct. I think it was an equalizer in many ways, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
That's a very good way of putting it. It was an equalizer in many ways.
yeah.
So pre-COVID, again, because this is such a distinctive time in history, pre-COVID, how did you all build relationships with donors?
Hmm,
And do you have donors who are, repeat donors who stay with you over time and so on?
sure. So there are three types of donors. One is on the retail front, we have one-time donors, what we call donors who come in to support causes once, right? And they range from being the donor who only reacts to disasters, so they come and donate once, and sometimes there is a personal cause or a tragedy, like a medical case, and they donate, or there is a very evolved donor. And the evolved donor is the one who's usually a repeat donor.
Okay.
And about 3 years back, when we realized this, we built our subscription giving platform, which is one of its first in India and also abroad, where we work with several nonprofits, about 200 plus nonprofits in India, to provide monthly giving options. What that means is, if you would like to, let's say, support a nonprofit that takes care of children who have cancer every month, then it's like a SIP platform where you donate every single month, right? So we have a range of donors across this, right? There's a very very committed donor who donates every month. Then there are donors who donate only when there's a personal tragedy or they see somebody in their circles. And then there's the one who donates only during disasters. In terms of their repeat and in terms of their lifetime value, uh, of course, committed donors' lifetime value is extremely high. We usually see them staying with us for a lot of, I would say, months. Whereas a donor on the other side of the spectrum who reacts to disasters usually comes in and goes once in a year, unless there's something that has happened in his or her circle. So that's how the donors vary. In terms of engagement across this spectrum, for committed donors, we have a very deep engagement model where we provide them with very 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 transparent data about who is the beneficiary they're supporting. So to give you an example, there was a program on GiveIndia that I used to donate to, and it was for a girl child education program. I used to get the report card of the girl every month as her classes proceeded, with her pictures and some notes about her. I wouldn't say it was the most polished messages notes from her teacher, but it would still inspire a lot of trust and confidence in me, right? Apart from this, we also do a lot of just incentivizing mechanisms like thank you certificates, thank you messages, providing more deeper impact reports to them. So that's what we do on the committed donor side. On the disaster or one time donor, what we do is we make sure, similar to COVID missions, like I explained earlier, we are very clear on what you're donating for, right? And usually we work with the NGOs to provide a large level update saying, hey, you gave us through the fundraiser you donated to, here's how much we raised and here's how it is being utilized, to provide that kind of large update along with thank you certificates to keep them motivated to come back later. And then there are various other engagement methods in between as well, but broadly this is how we do it.
So the relationship is based on keeping them informed of progress
Yeah,
and what has
correct.
happened and things like that.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
how many would you have, do you think, if you look at the number of committed donors who give month after month after month? Um,
So I wouldn't be able to put a number on that right now, but I do think that we see I would say approximately um, 30 to 40% of our donors are committed donors.
wow,
Uh,
that's a very high
yeah,
percentage.
yes, it is, and so we are continuously trying to evolve. How much deeper can we get in our engagement? So we also developed something called missions. What missions do is, unlike any other donation program, even on GiveIndia or anywhere else, when you donate, you just know that you've donated and you've got a thank you certificate. But on our missions, as soon as you donate, we send you the beneficiary's photo and information. So immediately you know that, hey, this is the girl or this is the child or this is the elderly that I'm supporting. So this is catering to the instant gratification that we are all used to, right? So we are constantly trying to evolve. How can we keep the donor engaged?
This is fascinating because usually a brand either sells a product or a service where, they pay for it and they get a fulfillment from the product or the service.
Right.
Here they give money and get
Yeah.
fulfillment from having supported something. It's a
Yeah.
very different model in terms of how it works.
Yeah.
I think, therefore, it can be that much more challenging because you're asking people to support for things they would normally not be spending the
Yes.
money on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of studies which talks about, there is a happiness quotient that, comes after, similar to how you feel after working out. They say that when you give, and there's an instant gratification or incentive that you get, there's a very strong, impetus given to your brain. And we have seen that happens with many of our donors. We receive very nice emails and messages saying this report makes me so happy, and keep up your good work. But it's ultimately because of the donors that we are able to do that.
It helps release the endorphins in the brain, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we have 5 minutes more, so we could open for questions but I think people will feel quite challenged in asking for questions for a business model like this. I mean, if you can call it a business model. Yeah.
Sure.
So I don't see any questions on the chat. If anybody has any questions, feel free to put them into chat at this time.
I think one question, Priyanka and David, was around, how do you see the number of donors in India scaling over the few years, and any learnings from other international as well? How do we do compared to more developed markets? Love to hear
Sure.
that.
Sure. That's a really interesting question, Sunil. So this has an interesting angle to it, right? What we have seen is, like I said, the giving exposure to giving has increased so much, especially in the last 1 to 2 years. So I definitely see a huge increment coming out of that. But outside of that, I think what will also help increase is in evolved markets like China, UK, and US. We have a lot of brands, corporates also engaging with their customers and consumers and their employees, which increases the donor base, right? And we are seeing that actively happen with us as well. Today, we work with the likes consumer brands and tech platforms, to the likes of Flipkart, PhonePe, Facebook, Google Pay, and many more. And these have some of the largest consumer base in India, and they are encouraging their their customer bases also to donate. So I can see that over the next 5 years, we'll be evolving very largely when it comes to giving across several donor segments.
And do you see partnerships also playing a role there, Priyanka, like even with the e-commerce companies like Order on Zomato, and donate, contribute 10 rupees to feed?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think brands have gone through a journey, especially last 2 years, where they feel that they need to engage their customer base. All because they want to, show that side of angle, that angle to, to their brand, and also be to engage with their customers as well. And we have so many examples of brands engaging with us for, very nice cause marketing campaigns, either through fundraisers or percentage sales, or creating entire donation categories, or even asking their donors to part with their loyalty points, right? So they're really working hard and figuring out ways in how to engage with their customer base. So I think absolutely that will play a very large role.
So I think that covers the last part of your designation, right? Giving,
Yes,
marketing, and partnerships. So
yes,
yeah,
that's true.
I think we are seeing that across other segments as well, where when Google Pay or a lot of
Yeah,
these platforms are becoming massive acquisition engines.
correct.
Scale.
Yeah, yeah.
And in terms of the cost, like, are you seeing any differential, Priyanka, in costs of donors from cities versus like smaller cities, and the contribution amounts? Like, could you share some light on that?
Sure. So it varies by the partner. And, if I take examples of it actually is in line and or in proportion to the kind of partner that is, right? Now, Cred is a great partner for us who worked with us, to create very meaningful giving campaigns. And the type of giving donor base, customer base that Cred has, right? It's supposed to be the top 5% and credit card holders. And as such, we see the amount that they give is commensurate with their kind of segmentation. Similarly, on the phone pay side, for example, where we work with them on the donation category, we power the entire donation category. They're a very large tier 2 tier 3 base audience company, and there we see huge scale. But the numbers are, I would, what we call the ADVs, average donation values, are slightly smaller. So if the value is not big, the scale usually compensates for it with these kind of partners.
Priyanka, great session. Thank you so much for those pointers. It was actually good to get an understanding of what goes behind an organization like GiveIndia. It's very intriguing. I've never heard of this before. So yeah, thank you for that.
And that last bit also, we've heard about average order value. Now we came to average donation value. So I think it'll kind of pivoted to match the nature of your business. Thank you so much, Priyanka. It's been
thank you so much for having me, David, and thank you, Sunil. And it was a very engaging, thoughtful conversation as well. So I appreciate you sparing time to learn more about us.
You're welcome. Very happy to have
you. I think to the entire GiveIndia team as well through COVID, supporting so many folks. I think thanks to your team for continuing to hold that flag high for the nation.
Thank you so much. All right, thank you, everyone. Bye.